Hello and welcome to Sierra Make. I'm Sierra and today we're going to make masks.
But before we start making our mask, I want to talk about the three main types of masks I've seen and some pros and cons of each of them. Here I've laid out the three different types of masks. The first one is a square fabric mask with pleats in it or folds. This mask also has a wire running through the nose, and it uses the elastic that goes around the ears. This one I'm showing here also has interfacing in it, but we'll talk about that later on. The wire in the nose makes this face mask adjustable, especially if you have a large bridge nose, which I clearly do not have. However, the interfacing makes it a little stiff, so I get gaps on the side of my face and underneath. Overall, this face mask is good for the adjustable wire nose, and it also requires very little cutting. However, it doesn't really conform to the face that well, and the design works better for disposable paper products rather than reusable fabric products. So the second mask design we have is really simple. It's kind of just a flat piece of fabric with some trim around it. But to make it conform to the face, they also used a stretchy fabric, which is not the best when it comes to filtering out particle matter. Overall, this mask is good because it's a super simple design and arguably comfortable because of how it stretches. For that very reason, it's a bad design because it doesn't offer a whole lot of protection, and if you have a large nose, it won't fit that well. Now the third mask, and the mask we will be making today, has a rounded shape to it, which is meant to conform better to the face. This design has a seam down the center of it, which could be a point for particle entry. However, there are a lot of variations you can do to this mask to make it a lot safer. Here you can see that the mask is a little bit too big for my face, and so it hangs off too close to the ears, and it hangs down too low from the chin. Overall, it has a pretty snug fit with enough space for my nose, and so that's why we will be making this one today. First things first, we need to print out our pattern and cut it out. I found this one online. I just googled face mask pattern. I will link it in the description below so that you can just use the same one I did. I liked this one in particular because it had a size for men, women, teenagers, young kids, or even small kids. Next, we want to pick a fabric. A tightly woven cotton is the best. I picked this one because the flames looked cool. Now I'm cutting out two rectangular pieces from the fabric that I want. I'm doing this because I will be ironing on interfacing to those fabrics before I cut out the actual pattern shape. If you don't have interfacing or you decide you don't want to use it, go ahead and skip ahead. I recommend using interfacing because it not only gives some structure to your mask, but it provides a secondary barrier for all of those particles, and it was recommended by Joann's Fabrics. The one I'm using here is a featherweight fusible interfacing, meaning I will have to iron it onto my fabric. Also, a little note, when you cut out your interfacing, you want to actually cut it a little bit smaller than the fabric you'll be using. Otherwise, you might accidentally iron it to your ironing board, which is what I accidentally did here. Also, while you're ironing, go ahead and lift up the corner to check to see and make sure your interfacing is connecting to your cotton fabric properly. When I did this, I made sure that the dull side of my fabric was the side that I was going to put the interfacing on, and I made sure that the interfacing was laying the right way so that it would iron to my fabric and not to my handkerchief. Now it's time to cut out our pattern. When you cut it out, make sure you leave some space for seam allowance around the edges of it, and also make sure you don't pin the fabric together because that pokes holes in your fabric, and instead use like a piece of chalk or a pin to sketch out your pattern. When accounting for seam allowance, I accidentally gave myself like ½ an inch when I really only needed to give myself 1/4 of an inch, which is why the mask ended up being so big for my face. Once that's done, go ahead and cut out your pattern. You should end up with 4 identical pieces. At this point, there's a variation you can do to your mask by putting a pocket on the inside of it so that you could insert filters or cotton paper towels or something as a third or second guard if you didn't add the interfacing in for your mask. So to do that, you would take 2 of those pieces and just shorten it a bit. I forgot to shorten mine even though I put pockets in, which led to a few problems down the line. So this is me reminding you not to make my mistake. Once it's all cut out, go ahead and put the 2 pieces together and sew along the curved edge. Make sure the interfacing is facing on the outside. I chose to use a black bobbin and thread here. It doesn't quite matter at this stage what color thread you use, but later on there will be a portion where the thread might show. Remember to double back over your stitches at the very beginning and the very end so that the sewing does not come apart. Now, if you did decide to put a pocket in it, go ahead and hem the shorter pieces that you sewed together. I do recommend doing this extra step to make the pocket just because it gives you a little bit more options, especially if you didn't put the interfacing in, if you want to make this mask a little bit safer. Now we're going to cut some slits along that curved edge that we just sewed so that when we flip it inside out, the fabric doesn't get in the way of that smooth edge. Now we want to place our 2 pieces together with the interfacing facing outward and sew along the top and the bottom. I had a fabulous idea. Since we didn't want to use pins to pierce the fabric, I grabbed some clips and clipped the fabric together. Now flip it inside out and we are almost done. But first, an optional piece you could add to your mask if you want to make it fit a little bit better would be a wire on the nose bridge. You can put the wire or pipe cleaner inside and sew along here if you do decide you want to do this option. Finally, we need to decide how we're going to attach it to our head and what material we're going to use. You could use elastic, you could use ribbon, or you could use trim. Which one you decide to use depends on what you're using it for. If you're making these for hospital workers, I recommend a non-latex material, so using ribbon or trim. However, if it's for yourself and you're not allergic to latex, the elastic may be a better pick. Next is how you want to attach it to your head. Do you want it to go around your ears, which is easy to take on and off and uses very little material? Or do you want it to go around your head so it doesn't bother your ears because you're going to be wearing it for a long time? Once you've decided your material and how it's going to go around your head, go ahead and hem that last edge and attach your material to it. And now we've finished our mask, perfectly tailored to fit our face and do what we need it to do. We've picked our design, how it's going to filter, what materials we're going to use, and how it's going to fit our face. If you like this video, please hit the like button, comment down below if you made a mask, and please subscribe because I post every Friday.